Matt Moot arrived at Campbell in the fall of 2007, the latest in a long line of golf standouts to make their way from western Pennsylvania to Buies Creek. Since graduating in 2011, Matt's career path has led him back to his alma mater twice. Four-year standout, two-time NCAA regional participant, and later he played on various professional tours, Matt eventually turned his attention to coaching and has mentored some of the best golfers ever to pass through these doors. Along the way, he was coached by and coached under Hall of Famer John Crooks. He was named head coach of the Campbell men's program last summer, and now two of Matt's former players are competing on the PGA Tour. Not only is Matt a student of the game of golf, but he's a lifelong and avid fan of all Pittsburgh sports teams, the Steelers, Pirates, and Penguins. My name is Stan Cole, class of 1987, and this is the next installment of Tales from the Creek, where we visit with the people who've made this place special over the years. I'm delighted to be joined today by former Campbell golf standout, now head coach Matt Moot. Welcome to Tales from the Creek, Matt, and thanks for taking the time to visit with us.
I appreciate you having me, Stan. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Matt, let's just start out at the beginning. Tell us about growing up in the Johnstown area and how you got your start in golf.
Yeah, well, that was a heck of an introduction, and I'm glad you included the origins of a proud Western Pennsylvanian. You grow up in this culture of black and gold, but I was lucky enough that a lot of my family played golf, and my father was the one that had introduced me. Fond memories of after work, him coming home and taking me out to the golf course, hitting golf balls in the evening and playing a 3-hole loop at my home golf course.
How old were you when you started?
Oh man, I was young. There's pictures and videos of me, just after I could barely walk.
Wow.
But I really started kind of getting into it and doing it pretty consistently, probably around the age of 5. And that's when I started taking coaching lessons, swing lessons, instruction from the home course head pro there. And he made an exception for working with somebody so young. But that kind of laid my foundation and, fell in love with it ever since. I'm not exactly sure what got me hooked at such a young age, but I can't remember a time where it wasn't one of my passions.
What are some of your best memories from those early days on the course, Matt? I mean, you mentioned coming home and spending that time with your dad. What are some of the other stories that you?
Yeah, well, it's still my favorite time of the day to play golf is as the sun's going down, because that reminds me of those early years. I can't tell you how many golf balls I've hit and how much time I've spent with my dad on the golf course. But as I got older, that evolved into having weekend matches. My dad, Ron, and my uncle, Bill, and my aunt, Pam, we would have these Saturday and Sunday matches. And I was usually partners with my uncle, and my aunt and my dad would pair up. And we had our format, and we played that for years. And we affectionately titled it our marble matches. And the origin of that was when I was younger, we'd get to the 18th hole, and really no matter how the match stood, we would say, all right, this one is for all the marbles. And that's where the name came to be. And then it developed into my uncle and my aunt were pretty accomplished world travelers. So they would go all over the world. And any stop that they would make, whether it be Italy, anywhere in South America, anywhere in Europe, they would stop and get these marbles. And the Venetian marbles from Venice were our favorite. But they would stop and get these marbles. And what we would do, us four, is we would put them in a pouch in our golf bag, and whoever won the match at the end of the day, whatever team won the match at the end of the day, they were entitled to grab a marble from the losers of the day. So the more you won, the more you accumulated marbles, the bigger your pouch got. But marble matches, I still think back on them to this day.
Matt, did you play any other sports, organized sports growing up?
You know what? I was always a sports nut.
Mm-hmm.
Always a huge fan of sports. As far as organized sports, not really. I started early in golf. Played a little bit soccer
Mm-hmm.
up through high school. Um, but I kind of grew up in an age where it was viewed that a baseball swing was going to hurt your golf swing.
Wow.
I'm a huge baseball fan, but really never played it organized. I was never big enough for football. I'm probably never tough enough physically for football, and I was never tall enough for basketball. Um, but I'm a huge sports fan. My brother, who played college football, he grew up playing everything,
Mm-hmm.
and he never got into golf. Ironically, he would have been a fantastic golfer. But my brother Nate, I followed him around to all these sports, was involved in a lot of his teams. Um, but I never played. Never certainly had a huge desire to, but that's never kind of taken away from my fandom.
I find it interesting the baseball golf connection and the dilemma. Does one swing hurt the other? Um, Jerry Smith, who was our golf coach here in the early '80s, his son Bill went on to play and star at UNC, and of course his grandson Brett played for you here at Campbell and in multiple NCAA regionals. Coach Smith told my son Oliver when he was young, probably a middle schooler, he says, "You play baseball, right? Just take that swing and lay it on the ground." And that was probably the first swing advice that my son got, and he went on to work in golf. Is that something that is still thought of, or because
Well,
I know there's a ton of baseball players who love to play golf.
absolutely, especially the pitchers. You
Yes.
think about the pitchers and but we didn't know any better. It's
Hmm.
just like how the game has evolved.
Hmm.
Similar to fitness in the weight room.
Right.
You know, that really wasn't a thing until honestly until I got to Campbell, until I got to college. Um, a lot of golfers ran, a lot of golfers worked on their mobility and flexibility, but as far as strength and speed, like we were just uneducated.
Right.
So the baseball swing and the different athletic movements, it's ironic now because, quite frankly, I love to recruit athletes. One of the first questions I ask when I'm recruiting a young player is, what other sports are you familiar with? What other sports do you play? Not only the team dynamic, but just the athleticism, just the movements. I think the closest move, not to get too golf technical nerdy here, but I think the closest athletic move to a golf swing is throwing a pitch
Wow.
in baseball. So I've honestly always had a pretty good arm. Um, I've just never thrown it on a diamond before.
Matt, growing up, who were some of your golfing heroes?
Naturally, from Western Pennsylvania, Arnold Palmer's kind of the hero of a lot of us. I had a chance to have lunch with him and meet him several times, and that was a wonderful experience. But his impact on the game and his charisma and his welcoming to a lot of people in the world of golf was cool. Um, so in the golfing world, he's somebody that I've always looked up to more intimately. My dad and my uncle were somebody that were two people that were big for me in my development. My dad was always a single digit handicap. Um, Traveled and worked with me with a lot at tournaments. My uncle, I think, has won close to 20 club championships around the country.
Wow.
So I was lucky enough to be impacted by a lot of great people.
When did you said you really started playing, take lessons at 5? When did you start entering tournaments?
That's a good question. I believe the Toyota Skills Challenge was my first tournament in Cedarbrook in Pittsburgh, and I was 7 years old. And then I competed in the U.S. Kids World Championship at Jekyll Island um, at 11 and 12 years old. So right around that age is kind of when I knew tournament golf was something that could, help your competitive juices flow and have that fire in you as an individual sport. So I love tournament golf. Still to this day, I think that's the most fun environment when you're holding a golf club in your hands.
Matt, when did it first occur to you that you could, you know, you wanted to, and then were good enough to play on the college level?
I don't know if I've still gotten to that place yet. I had a very average junior career, probably more of an average college career. But I knew that I wanted golf to be a part of my college experience, and I guess humbly I can say that I was good enough to have those opportunities, and grateful that I found a home here to be able to do that. It was just a perfect fit, and the recruiting process was different for me than when I experienced it on this side of things. Now as a coach, um, but finding an environment that helped me get better and helped me develop was a huge part of my decision making process. So, whether or not I ever felt I was good enough, I always wanted to find a place, and I always wanted my journey to help me get better and better. That was the passion and the road that I wanted to take and something that I prided myself on, just the desire and the ability to keep getting better and keep getting better and keep getting better.
Tell us how you got to Buies Creek. How did Campbell? There's a lot of good schools between Johnstown and Central North Carolina.
Well, you've mentioned my Western Pennsylvania ties, and the assistant coach at the time, Tim Crooks, no relation to John Crooks. Tim Crooks was the assistant, and Tim had a fantastic reputation as a really good Western Pennsylvania golfer, and I actually can recall watching him play in tournaments a few times. So he was at Campbell. He was the assistant coach at Campbell. So that was our connection. And I wanted to find a coaching staff that had the same passion as I did. I wanted to find some fantastic facilities, and honestly, traveling south of the Mason-Dixon line for somebody who really hadn't been outside of my little bubble, coming down south to take advantage of the weather and get away from home a little bit was important to me. So I could travel, 400 miles away from home, and still be with somebody like Tim and be around some friends at a place that felt like home, but still gave me a lot of the resources and a lot of the amenities that helped me on that journey to get better.
Matt, you kind of downplayed you said you were an average college golfer. FYI, Matt's one of the most humble people I know, but during his playing career at Campbell, 11 top 10 individual finishes, two-time Cleveland Golf Srixon All-America Scholar, helped the team win a league title, and competed in the 2009 and 2011 NCAA regionals. That '09 team with the team that won the ASUN championship, and then Matt went back and was invited, qualified as an individual his senior year. That's a pretty impressive resume, Matt. What was the key to your success?
Well, I appreciate that. And anytime I have a stats question or we dive into the history of Campbell sports and Campbell golf, I know you're my top one resource for that. Yeah, not to beat a dead horse, but I just kept getting better and better. I was better as a sophomore than I was coming in. I was better as a junior than I was coming in. And my senior year was probably my best year. And I spent a lot of that time ranked inside the top 100 in the country, was able to earn an at-large bid individually. And we can talk about that a little bit, but Coach Crooks changed my life when he introduced a belly putter to me,
Right.
and helped me on the greens. But I kept progressively getting better. Now, ironically, I was never the best player on any one of my four teams. I was surrounded by a lot of good players and hard workers and guys that were driven just like I did. In my first team meeting, Coach Crooks went around the room and was listing off the accomplishments of the players in that room and what they did this past summer. And we had national champions, and we had state champions, and we had guys that went to the regionals last year, and that was a wake up call. I went from being maybe a big fish in a small pond to a very little minnow in this Buies Creek meeting that we had. So just being around really good players helped me get better. And my senior year, um, finishing off the way I did, made me think that maybe we'll try this for a living.
Matt, you've mentioned in the past to me about how um, the older players, when you got here as a freshman, really helped you understand what college life and college golf like was all about. Tell me a little bit about that and the mentoring process you got from your teammates.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're a big reason why I'm kind of still here and have chosen Campbell for what, the third or fourth time now. Um on my pathway. But something I can respect more now than ever is that the college golf dynamic in a roster limit of what we have now is 9 players. It's a real trickle down effect from your top leadership, from your elder classmen. And I was so fortunate to come in at a great time where my upperclassmen of Freddie Sundberg and Izzy Pedersen and Mark Koppel, um, they were the ones that did the right way.
Mhm.
And they were easy to learn from, just not necessarily of what they said, but just how they approached day in and day out, life activities. Um, so I learned a lot from them. I had a really good foundation coming into Campbell, but uh, I tell people I got a business degree here, but I got a doctorate in golf, just
Mhm.
as much as I've learned. And being around my peers and being around those older guys on the team were a large part of how much I learned. Um, the program has Coach Crooks's fingerprints all over it, and probably always will. And a lot of what I do today is what I learned from Coach and what I learned from Tim. But as a player, I can't tell you how important it is of having good leadership and having the players who have been here for a number of years kind of show you the way, and you learn what works and what doesn't work, and learn just the right way to do things.
You had a core group of teammates, probably by the time you were a sophomore, Vida Guillaume, Mitch Gray, Zach Drescher. You've mentioned about how every day in practice was almost like a tournament, and y'all kind of turned it into a competitive environment. Tell us a little bit about that dynamic with those guys, especially.
So marble matches with my family were fun. The matches with those guys were cutthroat.
Hmm.
And uh, on a daily basis, I still have a group chat with those guys, and my phone will blow up, and it's mostly with sarcasm and backhanded compliments and things like that. But they're still closely involved in following Campbell golf. It was a large part of our lives. It's where we met each other and where we became so close. Um, so Zach Drescher was my partner. We'd play Mitch Gray and Vida Guillaume. We know exactly the match, and to this day, if you asked me what my dream foursome would be, it would be them. And then Harry Ashworth would probably play in the group behind us with somebody,
Right.
and we might have a side game there too. Um, but we grew up together, right? And we went through this process together, and those are my closest friends to this day.
I swapped a couple of messages with Zach and Mitch yesterday, and Mitch especially wanted me to make sure you told your story of your first college tournament out in Albuquerque. And he says that you kind of had a realization moment about college golf at that place.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll rewind to the weekends before
Hmm.
Albuquerque, and it's my first qualifying experience. And we're playing 72 holes or 90 holes or 108 holes, whatever qualifying was at the
Hmm.
time. Um, and leading up to qualifying, Coach Crooks, who played a lot of golf back then and was incredibly competitive, we would play 9 holes at a time at practice, and he would like to take his new players out, his freshmen,
Hmm.
uh, and play 9 holes with them, in the afternoons. So my first semester, my first couple weeks here, I was playing these 9 holes with coach, and he'd help you around the golf course, and he'd be very uh, coaching and help you out. It wasn't really like button heads or anything. He would try to coach and develop you, but he would always shoot like 33, 34 out there, and I'd card 35s, 36s. It wasn't like I was playing bad, but I could never clip him. I could never beat him on the scorecard. So finally, after this happens a couple of times, I go to Freddie Sundberg, who is one of those captain older players that I mentioned. I said, you know what? Like, I just can't beat coach. Like, I can't get him. And he says he won't let you. He won't let you until you're here for a couple semesters. So I was like, oh man, that's a little bit of a wake up call.
Okay.
So we get into qualifying, and the first weekend of qualifying was a holiday weekend, and I shot something like 68, 66, 78. And coach had played with the team, and he shot his normal 71, 70, 71.
Mm-hmm.
And long story short, that was a really good weekend for me where I earned one of the spots in qualifying. But after that qualifying, I went into the old golf office, which is down by your house now. I went into the old golf office, and coach and Tim were in there. And a punk young freshman walks in cocky with his chest out after just qualifying for, Albuquerque and playing really, really well that weekend and shooting a couple red numbers. And coach tells me, he says, son, I'm proud of what you did this past weekend. And I gave some smart aleck response like, hey, I'm just trying to keep up with you, old man, or something like that. And he paused and he looked at me. He goes, Matt, I don't shoot 78. So he has a great way of being proud of you and patting you on the back, but, keeping you in your place at the same time. So that's how I got to go to Albuquerque. So I'm going out to Albuquerque, and I don't think I've ever been on a plane before, but we're all taking care of all that stuff. Stan, I know it's at altitude, but it's about 7,800 yards long, and some of the tee boxes are right next to the airport.
Right.
And I don't think I've played so many par fives in my entire life, and didn't play particularly well. But I was like, is this what college golf is all about? My first round of golf, I believe his name is Tom Whitley, and he plays on the Korn Ferry in the PGA Tour now. He was an Air Force Academy freshman, I believe. And he stood at 6'4", probably 240 pounds, and it was just an eye opener. We didn't get that type of golf, that type of competition anywhere I came from junior golf. So that was an eye opener. And then after that, I did not play. I didn't make the lineup for the entire rest of the semester. And the first time I got back into the lineup was our home tournament at Keith Hills in the spring.
Right.
And I shot a few under par in that tournament. I think it was 36 holes at the time, and I think I shot 70, 72 or 69, 72, something like that. And after that tournament, I didn't miss one the rest of my college career. So it slapped me in the face early. You try to learn from it. But ever since that, we were kind of off and running.
Matt, in the run-up to 2009, there had been some players from Campbell who had earned at-large individual berths. One of your teammates, Freddie Sundberg, George Flume a couple of times to the postseason. But in 2009, you and your teammates put it all together and won the ASUN championship at Keith Hills. What do you remember? I know some people can have this incredible recall about shots and days, but what do you remember about that experience, about winning with your guys at your place?
Well, I remember it was Zach Drescher's birthday, the day before the final round.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember holding the lead and being a little bit nervous going into the last day. But you kind of knew teeing it up that you had 4 guys behind you all doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And disappointingly, I played terribly the last day. I played terribly the last day, and on the 17th hole, par 3, Coach Crooks is there helping me out, and I laid the sod over it. I laid the sod over an 8-iron, and I probably hit it about 120 yards, and I just told Coach, I said, man, I've been so nervous all day. I haven't found the club face the entire day. He said, don't worry about it. Your teammates got you. We good. Let's get this in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And there is nothing like the feeling of getting in the van after a college win. And then you do it with your guys, and you do it at the conference championship, and that qualifies for you for regionals. That was an experience that myself and our group chat probably will never forget.
And you've been here, been around here for, 20 years now, 2 decades. And at that time, the automatic qualifier for our league champion had not been in place that long. And at that time, it was a matter of, wow, this is incredible. We get to go play in the regionals. I think the expectations are a little bit higher these days. Share with your thoughts and how this program has grown here.
You're exactly right, and you put it perfectly. When I was playing, and I had a chance to play in 2 NCAAs, that was kind of the icing on the cake. That was kind of reward or the cherry on top for a fantastic season. Now, what I'm grateful for is the program has evolved in a way that you're the stat guy. You can probably tell me where, as a team, we went to 5 or 6 NCAAs in a row. And that developed into the expectation, the standard. They knew that, they had more golf to play after final exams. You always want to win your conference championship, and you always want that ring. But knowing that you are worthy of an NCAA bid consecutively, year in and year out, and that was the standard, that's just really fun to be a part of. And Coach Wanda Watkins actually gave me this piece of advice. She said, as a player, it's fun to see yourself get better and better and improve, but it pales in comparison how rewarding it feels to watch your team and your players get better and better, improve. And that's really what I feel like this program has done. It just continues to grow, continues to get better, continues to be better than it was. And I think right now the program is as healthy and healthier than it was when I was here.
What incredible advice from Campbell's first female scholarship recipient and a Hall of Fame coach with 549 wins over her 35-year career. Matt, real quick, are there any other tournaments or courses that you played in college that stand out in your memory and you're like, I'll never forget that?
Courses, I could probably tell you every course that I played in every tournament. A lot of the stories stand that I have fond memories of happen off the golf course.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
In travels and stuff like that. We had a chance. We won a tournament every year that I was here. And one of the tournaments we won was at Coosaw Creek outside of Charleston.
Sure.
And this is before live scoring,
Right,
or anything like that. So it was a windy day, the last round. So windy that I was playing with a guy that he teed it up 3 times because the ball blew off twice. Ball blew off the tee twice. So we were grinding. I shot 75 the last day, and I thought that was actually a pretty good round.
Mm-hmm.
And we're competing coming down the stretch. It's coming down to every shot. And you mentioned a lot of the good players I played with, and maybe the best one I played with was Vita. And Vita was in the last group. And this tournament was sponsored by Wendy's. So Wendy's was our boxed lunch. We had Whoppers or whatever. No, not Whoppers, Burger King. But we had hamburgers from Wendy's as our boxed lunch. And after the round, I finish up, and I'm just housing these burgers. Like, I'm hungry, and it's over. And Vita's in our last group, and he comes down 18, and he makes a 20-footer. And the team we're competing against misses about a 4-footer. Now we're looking at the scoreboard, and we're doing math in our head and trying to figure out what to win. We said, you know what? I think we're tied. I think there's a playoff. Well, now I'm getting nervous, and now I got about 4 Wendy's cheeseburgers in my stomach, and I'm like, I don't know if I can play more golf. But we went out there, and the way the playoff format is Vita and I went out with a group of 3 of their guys, and 3 of our players went out with 2 of their guys, so 2 groups, 10 players. And once you know, Vita birdied that hole again, and we won. But each one of our wins, and unfortunately, probably each one of our second places where we lost by a shot or 2, you have distinct memories of.
Sure.
And winning in a playoff the way we did dramatically with my guys, that's a cool one I have.
How about away from the golf course while you were undergrad? I know you're a big sports fan, and I know you really enjoyed watching the basketball team was pretty darn good back then too.
Oh, no doubt. And I was lucky enough to see some games in Carter Gym. And then, the genesis of the Pope Convocation Center now.
Right.
And to see that and to see the first points scored in that arena and playing against some pretty big schools when that place was packed, it was so much fun. Yes, you mentioned I'm a sports fan. I'll give you one story. We're heading out to San Diego for a tournament at I think it was at Palma Valley. And we are traveling, and Tim Crooks is on the trip with us. And actually, his wife, Jo Ellen, who was involved with the program at the time on our coaching staff, what an accomplished player she was, LPGA Tour player, Epson Tour champion. It was really great to have her around the program. Anyways, we had a large coaching staff going with us to San Diego for the tournament. And again, I'm not a super accomplished traveler or whatever like that, but Zach and I are roommates for the week, and he's my best buddy, and we're going to go together. So we're flying on Southwest. And Zach and I agree that, okay, I'm going to get the window, and he's going to get the aisle seat. So we're sitting in the same row. And the entire time as they're loading, the flight attendants and the captains say, hey, this is a full flight. Make sure there's, move your bags over. Make sure there's room. Every seat's going to be taken, all that stuff. Well, it's getting to a point where they're going to close the doors here pretty soon. And I have the window, and Zach has the aisle, and there's still a seat in between us. And we're like, do you think we can get this lucky that nobody's going to sit in between us? And we got this cross-country flight that we're going to have an empty seat. So we're crossing our fingers. Well, the last guy on the plane comes in as the doors are closing, and there's one seat available left on the plane, and this guy sits down in between us. Now, all I remember about this guy, Stan, is he sat down. He has tree trunks for thighs. Just massive. He's a massive, massive dude. And again, not to date myself, but this is before smartphones, and this is before a lot of technology. But this guy comes in, and he has 3 devices. He has an iPod, he has some kind of cell phone, and he has some screen that flips up, and he's playing on his devices. And Zach and I have our magazines. And the guy taps us, and he says, hey, do you mind if I borrow one of those magazines? And we said, yeah. So I think Zach gave him the Men's Health. And so we struck up a little bit of conversation. And he saw us in our matching travel gear. He said, do you guys play a sport? We're like, yeah, we're a college golf team, Campbell University. It's from North Carolina. And there was something about this guy, Stan. And so we were talking to him. We said, "Hey, do you play a sport?" And he goes, "Yeah." "What sport do you play?" He goes, "I play football." And we're like, "Oh, what school do you play for?" He goes, "No, no, no, not school anymore." And we're like, "Wait a second. Do you play pro?" He goes, "Marshawn Lynch, Buffalo Bills." So we spent the next 3 hours talking to Beast Mode before he was Beast Mode.
Right.
But and I knew who Marshawn Lynch was. Obviously, not enough to know if he's sitting right next to me, but I knew the name Marshawn Lynch, and he went to Cal, and that's actually he was going out to do some spring lifting and training out in Southern California because I think he's from Oakland, but he's a California guy.
Mhm.
And we were talking to him, so, "Hey, how's the NFL and all that stuff?" He says, "You know what? I got drafted to Buffalo, and I think I'm going to New York City." And I get off the plane in Buffalo, and there's slush on the ground, and he goes, "This is not New York City."
Right.
So, he his personality was exactly what you see on TV today. The fact that he turned into beast mode, I totally understand because I sat shoulder to shoulder to him, and I realized how big and massive and athletic he was. And he spent some time with the team when we landed and picked up our bags in the airport. But every time there's a clip or something of Marshawn Lynch, who's not in the league now, but very, very relevant. Every time there's a clip, Zach and I always have a comment about it and go back and forth, and that's part of our group chat content as well.
It's an amazing thing, Matt. I traveled with the basketball team for 34 years, and the people you'd run into in the airport, and especially back in the days when we were flying so much in conference in the Atlantic Sun, we'd fly through Atlanta, we'd fly through Charlotte, Orlando, and those were major hubs. And I'll never forget that people would come up to us if you had on a Campbell jacket or sweatshirt or something, whatever your gear you're traveling in. People would say, "Oh, Campbell, I went to basketball camp there," or the Fighting Camels, or there would be some sort of connection. And I'll never forget, sometime in the late '90s, Kent Cox was our radio broadcaster at the time, and he comes running up to me, and Kent was a little bit younger than I was, and he said, and for in that particular leg, the men's and the women's basketball team had similar itineraries. We're in the airport at the same time, and he comes running up to me. He says, "Stan, you'll never guess who Coach Watkins is talking to." And I said, "Well, who's she? It's Al McGuire." And a lot of people now don't understand. Al McGuire was the longtime coach at Marquette. He was on NBC with Dick Enberg and Billy Packer, and back in the '80s and early '90s is one of the best broadcast teams for college basketball ever. But Al McGuire's first college coaching job was over at Belmont Abbey, just west of Charlotte. And so he knew Campbell, and so he was talking with Coach Watkins about Campbell and all the people they knew and stuff. And I tell people, no matter where you go in this world, you're liable to run into somebody who knows this place.
Absolutely, and I think it's getting more and more like that with the success of our athletics
Mhm.
and our reputation growing, and whether it's TV exposure or just more NCAA bids, Campbell's becoming a brand, which is awesome. It's funny you say that about people coming up to you. I was actually on another trip in an airport, and the old general manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates, David Littlefield, came up because he saw we had Campbell gear
Mhm.
on, and you know how much of a Pirates fan I am.
Mhm.
But I guess he had spent some time at Clemson, and he came up to me and said, "Oh, Campbell University in Buies Creek, North Carolina, blah 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 blah." And I've spent some time there, and I don't know if it was baseball camps but just his involvement with Clemson. He was familiar with Campbell baseball. And we were talking, and he asked where I was from, and I told him Western Pennsylvania, and he asked me what hometown and where I go to high school. And after I said Johnstown and I went to Bishop McCourt, he started reeling off all of the kind of baseball success stories that we've had in my local area, like Tony Joseph and Gene Pence and Pistol Pete Vukovich, and so that was a really really cool connection for exactly what you're saying. I had Campbell gear on, so it's really cool to be associated with this university, and the more people that know about it, the better it is.
Our guest today on Tales from the Creek is Campbell golfing great, now head men's golf coach, Matt Moot. Matt, tell us a little bit about your professional career.
Yeah, so we tapped into it a little bit after my senior year in college. I thought about giving it a go. Uh, and that was an awesome experience, and something I learned is every single decision you made on a daily basis was revolved around what's best for my golf.
Hmm.
And I played back when mini tours were a thing.
Right.
Um, Before there were these kind of pathways to the PGA Tour. You'd kind of legally gamble and put up your own money, and the purse that you were playing for is the entry fees that everybody put in. And there was no way to make a living doing that, but you didn't try to make money doing that. What you were trying to do is move up the rungs of the ladder. And I'll kind of tell it from Coach Crooks's perspective, which is not far from being entirely accurate, but I'm playing golf. And I think deep down, Coach always thought I was going to be a better coach than a player. So he reached out to me pretty soon after I graduated. And when they had the opportunity to grow their coaching staff and add an
Hmm.
assistant coach. So he reached out to me and asked me if I'd be interested in an opportunity like this. And I said, Coach, I kind of want to give this playing thing a go, and I'm playing really well right now. And, I just graduated a short time ago. I'm going to kind of go my own, go my own way. I said, yeah, totally fine. Go get them. Keep making putts. And then a couple more years go by, and Tim Crooks leaves, and his spot is open. And Coach Crooks calls me, similar conversation where he said, "Hey, would you be interested in this coaching thing?" And I said, "You know what? I just qualified for. I just Mondayed into a Corn Ferry event. Like I'm playing pretty good right now. I got a summer ahead of me. Uh, I don't think I'm interested in coaching." Well, that's the last time he's going to call. Right?
Hmm.
I can only tell him no so many
Sure.
times. So our third conversation like this, I called him. I was kind of done playing golf. I was actually still in the business, um, in club management at a private club, and I enjoyed that. But I always kept gravitating to the golf part of things. So I heard through the grapevine that there was an assistant coach opening working under Coach Crooks. And again, I called him this time and I said, "Hey, I know we've had similar conversations like this in the past, and you've asked me uh, if I'd be interested. Now I'm going to ask you, like, would you be interested in me coming back?" So that kind of developed into a couple more conversations. And the best piece of advice he gave was, I don't exactly know what you're doing now or your responsibilities or who you have to be, but as a coach, you can be exactly who you are, and you can be exactly who you were born to be. And if you want to do this coaching, you can be authentic and you can be yourself. And that's what sold me. And that's kind of why I'm back. When did I start? 2017, I think, January 2017.
Yeah, and that leads into my next lead because I don't know if you could have picked a better time to
Mm,
join the coaching staff. Um, Jesper Svensson, Ray Krivician were sophomores on that team, and you join in January and April. You didn't lap the field, but you beat a really good Liberty team soundly, and Jesper Svensson broke Dustin Johnson's Big South 54-hole scoring record. You know, tell us about that, jumping right into what a talented group you had to work with.
absolutely. And people ask me, like, what makes a good coach? Well, you know what makes a good coach? Good players. Good players make a good coach. And the timing was awesome. And I'm grateful to have started like that. For somebody who had no idea what they were doing as a coach, um, I went into the fire with some really good people and some really good players. Um, so what I could offer them was just perspective, just where I have come from, what I've been through, what journey I took, and I was in their shoes, just a short time ago. Um, Similar to today and my team, there is so much information out there, so much more than I ever had. as far as the education and the knowledge for anything that has to do with our game. There's not much. The majority of the resources I give my team is nothing that they don't already have access to.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily education and knowledge. It's just coming from a different perspective. It's what I've tried over thousands of reps that they just haven't gotten to yet. It's the experience. It's the lens that I view it at that may be a little bit different than what they have. What can I give my players that I wish I had when I was their age? So just like that, coaching was a learning process, and they were good. They were really good. The best part about that team is, and you mentioned some of them, Jesper and Pontus and Brett and Max and Ray Kravician. Any one of those guys could be the best player that day.
And when the semester that you joined, you had another Western PA guy, Craig Hornberger, or a Pennsylvania guy, Craig, on the team as well. And Craig had a really good collegiate career, and he was finishing up and finished his career playing in the regional at Purdue.
Well, Craig was the best junior player in Pennsylvania at the time, so for him to choose Campbell was pretty special. And Craig was part of the era that really laid the foundation of that 5 or 6 consecutive NCAA regional appearances. He was part of conference championship teams, conference champions. But he was one of those elder statesmen, one of those mentors to guys like Jesper and Pontus and Ray. And I'm proud he's a Pennsylvanian, and I'm proud he's a Campbell Camel, and he's playing really, really good golf right now. Just got married to another Campbell golfer in Stacy White, and he's really successful up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And a cool thing about him is every time I see him on a leaderboard of a tournament, he's got Campbell gear on. So he's one of the good ones.
Now, for the second time in about a decade span, 2 Campbell alumni are on the PGA Tour. Back in the 20-teens, it was David Mathis and Brad Fritsch on the tour together. Now Jesper and Pontus are traveling the globe to compete against the best golfers in the world. Share with us a little bit from your inside perspective about each of those guys and what makes them so good.
Yeah. Skill-wise and talent-wise, we have very similar players come in here year in and year out. Yes, there are some better than others, but as far as talent and raw skill, there's not a big differential between a lot of players. Now, the intangibles and the way they develop that and the way they incorporate that into getting better is usually the separator. But the things that separated Jesper and Pontus, Jesper's a year older, so I'll start with him. Not to say Jesper was very average on a day in and day out basis, but again, you did not look at him and think he was heads and shoulders above everybody else. I've never seen this happen as much of an example as when I saw with Jesper. Jesper would play in qualifying, he'd practice, and he was a very good practicer. He was a good qualifier, and he'd make our lineup pretty consistently, but he was just one of the guys. When Jesper went to a tournament, from the time he stepped foot outside the van, and those 3 or 4 days that he was there, he was incredibly businesslike. He was there to do a job. That was his arena. From the time he stepped foot out of the van, he was probably 6'3", 6'2", but by the time he stepped foot out of the van, he looked like he was 6'5". He had a swagger, he had a purpose, he had an intention in every single thing he did, and that's where he shined. He was literally the best version of himself when we were at tournaments. As a teammate, as a competitor, as a in preparation, um, on the biggest stages, he was his best. And that is why I'm so excited to see him on the biggest stage in the world of golf. He's played in major championships. We had opportunities to see him in PGA Tour events. He's going to be his best when the lights are the brightest. And you could see it with your eyes. And it was impressive. Pontus, and you would never know this if you knew anything about his demeanor or your interactions with him. Pontus is about as much of an extremist as I've ever been around. And what I mean by that is in everything that he set his mind to, he jumped in head first, 100%, pedal to the metal, full systems go. And that was really true. And I have stories from his junior career, from the time he got here, whether that's something as simple as gaining weight and working really hard in the weight room, to his diet, to a swing change, to improving his putting, to becoming a better scorer. Every single thing he did, he was an extremist, and he was incredibly consistent. Both Pontus and Jesper were very reliable, and that's a phenomenal quality you can have as a student athlete, just being reliable. You knew exactly what they were doing, how they were doing it, and the 100% effort they were given. So every goal that Pontus has ever voiced to me, he's achieved, no matter how lofty it seems. That's why when he had the goal of being a PGA Tour member, I knew he was going to do it. It was just not if, it was when.
Right.
So he spent a number of years on the Korn Ferry Tour, all successful, but he finally got his PGA Tour card. Now I'm sure a goal of his is to play in major championships, and a goal of his to win on the PGA Tour. And if I'm a betting man, it's easy money. Like, he's going to do it.
He's going to get a marble.
He's going to get a marble, probably way too many from my pouch.
Matt, you've played for and worked alongside a Hall of Fame coach in John Crooks. You've touched on in any story you're going to have revolving around Campbell golf is going. We're going to circle back to Coach, but what was it like to have him as your coach, and then to learn from him as a coach, and still are,
and I still always will. He's incredibly important to me and valuable in really anything I do. When we made this transition and I assumed the head coaching title, when we announced it to the team, Coach said, "There's, I'm happy, I'm thrilled. This is the perfect time. There's going to be a new voice," and I had to correct him because it's not a new voice. Like, everything I've learned and everything that's kind of shaped my coaching philosophy has come from Coach Crooks. And I told you, I feel like I got a doctorate in golf when I came here, and he was the main reason why. He's forgotten more about the game than I ever will know. And it's crazy that I've been around him for almost 20 years now, and I still learn every single day about it. And he will always be a tremendous advice giver. He always gets the most out of his people. And sometimes that's tough in today's day and age when we don't welcome adversity and we don't welcome criticism. But he finds a way to get the absolute best out of his players and his coaches. And I have that in mind every single time I talk to him. I hold the title coach in incredibly high regard, and he's my coach.
Matt, you mentioned the philosophy. What are some of the points of your coaching philosophy, and how's that changed over the years?
Yeah, not that I dislike that question, but it probably just because I don't have a great answer for it, and I don't have bullet points, and I don't have like, okay, this makes you a good coach. And this is my philosophy, and this is where it comes from. Um, it's more of I'm trying to provide a fantastic experience to my student athletes. I'm trying to give them every resource they need to fulfill their full potential. I'm trying to identify what I think they can achieve. And if all of those match up and we can even exceed anything that they think their potential of, um, then I feel like I'm doing my job. Um, as far as philosophy, there's no secret sauce. There's no and like you were saying, it does evolve, like it does develop, it does change. And I work in an individual sport where I'll have, you know, 8, 9 guys uh that I'm working with, and it may be different. And the message that you give may need to be framed a little different depending on who you're talking to. But you're just trying to squeeze as much juice out of your guy and get as much out of him as you possibly can and be a resource for that. Be an impact for their 4 or 5 small journey here of their era and their golf career. Um, you're trying to be an amenity for them to exceed even the expectations they have for themselves.
Matt, about 9 months ago, your alma mater chose you to be the next head men's golf coach. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's cliche, but and I probably hesitate to say it, but it's a dream job to one get the commitment um, from the university, but be at a place that you love so much, be at a place that has such a big impact on you, be at a place that you feel like you can have an impact on. Um, it's been really special, and I joke around about it, but yeah, this is my third tenure here, and I was a recruit here, and I was a student here, and I was an assistant coach here, then I was a coach again here, and I couldn't think of a better place or a place I'm more passionate about to do it. Um, you can cut this out or not, but I'll tell you a story. So we were at Coach Jerry Smith's service when he passed away,
Mhm.
and saw a lot of familiar older faces, newer faces, Campbell athletics people um, at Coach Smith's service, and you and I and Claudia were there, and some other people were there, and we were talking. We were talking about my journey, and somebody says, "Hey, Matt, you're back." And Claudia goes, "Yeah, he's home now." And that's exactly right.
That's the way it feels. You don't have to say that for someone who's spent something like 41 of the last 43 years in Buies Creek. Matt, you've helped develop and recruit 4 players who've won League Player of the Year, 4 straight Conference Rookies of the Year. What qualities do you look for in the recruiting process for the next Campbell recruit?
Yeah, well, you need to find your fit. You need to find a place, you need to find a person who will succeed at this place.
Mm-hmm.
And this place needs to benefit the player, and the player needs to benefit this place and what we have. Culturally, are they going to be in a great dynamic that we have with the team? And then besides the skill and what I look for technically, and what I look for if they're good enough, um, they have to have an overarching desire to get better. And this is the perfect place that you can do that. I saw it with me as a player. I've seen it from our PGA Tour guys, and I see it from our current guys. You can't get better unless you want to. And we give them everything they need here that they have the ability to do that. and no pun intended, but the ball's on the tee, and then now it's just for them to hit it.
Speaking of your current team, since returning from Christmas break, the first tournament canceled due to the weather, but third place at Daytona Beach to open the spring. Then y'all won at Palmetto, and another first place finish, albeit a shared title with Elon last weekend at Cutter Creek. Share with us a little bit about this year's team.
We're getting better and better, and it just comes from some experience, some confidence, some maturity, being comfortable in an environment of contention and in competition. At LPGA International down in Daytona, we came in third, and Baylor beats us by 2 shots.
Mhm.
And then the home team wins that tournament. So if you take Stetson out of it, one program has beat us all semester.
Mhm.
And that was Baylor by 2 shots. So we always knew we were on the right track. Inside the room, we knew that. We knew what we had. I'm grateful, and it's very nice to see the results on the leaderboard now.
Mhm.
Now people are taking notice. Now people are starting to find out what we knew inside the room. So it's taking a little bit of time, but it's sometimes it's baby steps. It's chipping away at it. It won't happen just because of one addition or an epiphany of any kind. We're a complete team. Everybody's working hard, and everybody's contributing. We've got work to do, and we got golf in front of us. But I really think our best golf is in front of us. But with these good results, it's just fueling a little bit of the fire, and it's giving validation that we're doing the right things and we're on the right track, and the guys keep working hard, which is fun to see. And I also get a huge sense that they want something more. So we'll see what happens. I'm optimistic. I'm excited to be doing it with the guys I'm doing it with, and let's see what we can do moving forward.
Two of your players were the last 2 CAA Rookies of the Year, Eric Johansson and Benjamin Killingstad. Guy that didn't get that honor, Joachim Larsen Tegner, represented Norway in the World Amateur Team Championships last fall. While he was away, your transfer, Logan Graff, tied for first place down in Georgia Southern's tournament. You've got some really good freshmen and William Sunborn and on Adrian Bergfist. It's a really deep team, I think, but you also play in a really deep conference. Share with us a little bit about what it's like, what it's going to be like teeing it up here in about a few weeks in the CAA championship.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that about our team, because this is maybe the first time I've had the chance to experience that analogy of what we talked about our great teams in that 18, 19, 20 era, is that I think we've had 5 different guys lead us at tournaments.
Correct.
Every single round that we tee it up, we're going to play well. It's just who's going to play the best. I really don't see a weak link on the team. It's just a matter of who's going to take the baton and be the best player that day. And that's what I'm saying. We're getting contributions from everybody, and we're a complete team. And similar to that, the great teams, any one of those 5 or 6 guys could be our best player that day. And then, quite frankly, we need that going into the CAA. There's a very real possibility that the Coastal has 3 or 4 bids in the NCAA tournament, which is really, really unique in mid-major college golf. And credit to those programs for playing well. And in golf, you play 10 to 12 tournaments a year, and you devise your schedule, and you may only see conference opponents no more than maybe 1, 2, or 3 times in the season, and then everybody comes together for the conference championship. So they've put forth a really good body of work. But the way we're playing now and the trajectory that we're on, I think we can hang with anybody. I think my players believe that they can hang with anybody, and we're worthy of an NCAA bid. And it's really fun to compete against some of the best teams in the country. I'm rooting for Campbell, and I'm rooting for the CAA, and I hope we have as many NCAA bids as we can get.
Our guest today on Tales from the Creek is former Camel golf standout, now head men's golf coach, Matt Moot. Matt, no conversation with you would be complete without mentioning some Pittsburgh pro sports teams. How do you rank your love of the black and gold teams? Can you go 1, 2, 3, or does it just follow the calendar?
Well, this is the fun part of the podcast because I do talk golf quite a lot with my guys, right? And they're not really into certainly Pittsburgh fandom. A lot of the apps on my phone and a lot of the broadcasts and stuff I see on TV are still Western PA origined programs. I miss being back home. I get back for probably one Steeler game a year, which is always a boatload of fun. Never grew up much of an NBA fan. Love college basketball, but I never grew up much of an NBA fan, probably because Pittsburgh didn't have a sports team.
Mm-hmm. The Pittsburgh Condors back in the ABA.
You remind me of that a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I didn't have a choice or what it was, but Coach Crooks always says, I have 2 loves, Campbell University and Pittsburgh sports. And I don't know which one I hold in higher regard. But Steelers are number 1, for sure. I've been fortunate enough to see 2 Super Bowl victories, 2 losses. One of the only times I've ever cried after a loss was the 95 season Super Bowl to the Dallas Cowboys when they lost in Tempe, Arizona. And what was I, 6 years old or whatever? But I cried. I did, even though we were 10-point underdogs. Steelers are number 1. I don't know who's number 2 and number 3. I don't know if it goes Penguins, Pirates, or Pirates, Penguins. But I will preface it by saying this. If I could see a championship, by far, it would be a Pirates World Series. I just want them to be good.
Because it's been since 1979.
We are family, and that's way before me. I don't know if I've ever had my juices flowing as much as when the Pirates had a good little 2-3 year run there. And then they would run into a buzzsaw of one of these 1-game playoffs, wild card things where they just run into somebody has their A game on the mound. That was so much fun. Even summer ball and coming down the stretch, and every game was important. And then I'm old enough to remember Mario Lemieux and Yarmer Yager and Ronnie Francis and Tommy Barrasso and that 90s era of the Penguins. And now, shoot, I got Sidney Crosby, Geno Malkin, Chris Letang, Marc-Andre Fleury. I got to see Cups back-to-back. I got to see a Super Bowl win and a Stanley Cup when I was in college. My teammates in my group chat will still tell you the greatest night of Matt Moot's life was the Steelers' Super Bowl win against the Arizona Cardinals when I was a sophomore in college. So I'm lucky to be a Pittsburgh sports fan, still through and through. Steelers will probably always be number 1. Pirates and Penguins, we'll give them the tie. But man, I would just love the Pirates to be good, and I would, more than anything, I would love to see a World Series, and I would want to see a World Series before another Super Bowl or another Cup. Um, don't know what to think about the optimism or the future of each one of those franchises. We need a quarterback. We need to find young people because Crosby and Malkin and Letang are old. We got Skeens on the mound and some really young prospects, good prospects of the Pirates. But win or lose, good or bad, die hard. My players will tell you in the fall, Coach Moot's Monday mood is dictated by what happened to the Steelers on Sunday.
Matt, you are in a fraternity, a Campbell golf fraternity, an alumni group stretching all the way back into the early 60s. It's really tight-knit. And in that group, you've got major championship participants. You've got national champions. Campbell's only national sports champion, 1970 men's golf, Sam Brewer and those guys. That group, your alumni group, seems to be really tight. Why do you think that is?
Well, and you've had a lot of those guys on your podcast, and that's something that I've been more exposed to now in this new role as the head coach, and I'm excited for about developing those relationships and growing that community and being closer and closer with them. And I love your saying about the sun never sets on Campbell Golf in Buies Creek. We come from everywhere, all over the country, all over the world. Some really fantastic careers, both in the golfing world and outside of the golfing world. Golf is an awesome community where you have your 14 clubs and you're trying to get in the hole 18 times, and you're at a place like Campbell where you have that commonality. It's fun to hear the different eras of what they had, what they didn't have, how the game has evolved. I've been really humbled and overwhelmed by the participation of our alumni and the involvement that they want to be in giving our current student athletes a great experience. And I think it all goes back into kind of what I said is I had a great experience here. And it was the best time of my life. And I think a lot of our alum feel the same way, and we have that in common. And really, what separates us is did I use a persimmon driver or do I have a titanium driver? But we were all in the same shoes. And this past tournament, we had alum come out and watch us play, and alum have hosted us at their golf courses and their homes and have seen us on trips. I hope my players and my team now, one of their motivations is to make those guys proud.
Well, and we look back and you see those 60s guys and 70s guys like Sam Brewer and Julian Bunn, and they're inviting your players to their course and to have a meal with them. And then this just most recently, John Marshall and his wife, Kelly, has your team over for a meal during your trip down in eastern North Carolina. The special thing that I see is the generation, and you touched on it, the shared memories, the shared feelings, and they can be no matter whether you're from Raleigh or Wake Forest or Henderson or Sweden or Norway or wherever, Tahiti. You share this one experience, and that is so gratifying to see. Matt, let's just wrap up with a few quick hitters that I always like to ask my friends in golf. You already said this, I believe, your ideal foursome.
Yeah, Mitch Gray, Zach Drescher, Vita Guillaume, I'll play, and Harrison Ashworth, he can ride in the car with us.
Well, you get a fivesome if you know the pro, right?
Sounds good.
What's the most difficult course you've played?
Oakmont, by far. Day in and day out. You don't have to do anything to it to make it, I think, the hardest golf course I've ever stepped foot on. Um, there's a reason why they host so many U.S. Opens.
I know you're going to say Keith Hills, but other than Keith Hills, what's your favorite golf course?
Probably some that you've never heard of, whether back in Western PA or something that's really cool about our area. Think about the dozens of phenomenal golf courses around here. Yeah, it's corny to say, but Keith Hills is my favorite golf course, and if I had one more round of golf, give me orange to black.
How about a course on your bucket list?
I've been to Augusta National twice for 2 Masters. Another passionate sports thing of mine is the Masters and the tradition of Augusta National. That's probably unrealistic, but maybe I'll find somebody that can hook me up at Pebble Beach. I'll say Pebble.
Matt, what's the best piece of advice golf-wise that you've been given?
This is a little bit unique, and golf is such a mental game. And it's crazy how it correlates the mental game to your physical game. Something that I've always taken to heart, and I think is really good advice, is act, play, and think as if the ball knows what you're thinking. Because if you're thinking, I want to hit it here, or I'm a good player, or I'm going to execute this shot, if you're thinking about that internally, it's crazy how the ball reacts. And the ball has no idea. But act, play, and think as if the ball knows what you're thinking.
Finally, Matt, can you put into words what Campbell University and Buies Creek and that community, how they've impacted your life?
In more ways than one. I was fortunate to be a recruit here. I was fortunate to be a student here. I was fortunate to be an athlete here. I'm fortunate to be on the staff. Fortunate to be an alum. I hold that in really high prestige, being a Campbell University graduate. I've made my greatest friendships here. I've had the greatest time of my life here. And I love my email signature that says Matt Moot, head golf coach, Campbell University.
I'm Stan Cole, and our guest today on Tales from the Creek is former Campbell golf standout, now head men's golf coach, Matt Moot. Thank you, Matt, for sharing your tales from your.
Appreciate it, Stan. Thank you.